Good day, gentlemen. This video is one that I've worked on for a long time, and this is such a crucial video. What I'm about to tell you has literally cost me years of my life in my relationship, because I didn't know this stuff over 5.5 years ago when I started dating my girl, and it really kept us from building the deep, passionate, secure relationship that both of us wanted. The thing is, fortunately for you, I haven't seen anyone else talk about this. I will literally be the first one to talk about this because I haven't seen anyone else do it. Maybe someone else has, but I haven't seen anyone. And the thing is this, most people are afraid to talk about this because this is such a nuanced topic, but we have to talk about this. Because, be honest with yourself, relationships are the most important thing in your life. When you're 95 years old, laying on your deathbed, you will not think about the money you've made, or the physique you've built, or whatever else you achieved in your life. You will think, I wish I had spent more time with the people I love and I had built better relationships with them. And that's why we need to talk about this. Now, you most likely right now are in this situation where you realize that you're not too masculine, and you want to become more masculine, but your girl doesn't really appreciate that too much. She maybe even feels repelled by it. And this is a huge problem for many young men, because we don't have good masculine role models anymore. We either have very extreme, hyper-masculine role models, or we have people who say masculinity is bad. There's no middle ground anymore, and that's horrible. Now, right away I will say, this problem that you're facing right now doesn't exist because she doesn't appreciate masculinity. No, she does. She does appreciate guidance and love and wisdom and direction and someone who can take responsibility. The problem is that you are doing what I have been doing a couple of years ago. There's a hawk, I think that's what they called, like 20 meters away from me, just looking for mice. That's nice. You are doing what I did a couple of years ago. You most likely realized, hey, I'm not too masculine. I should become more masculine. I don't really feel good how I am currently. That's how I felt a couple of years ago. And then what do we do as young men? We go on YouTube and we search masculinity and we watch all these YouTubers, right? I won't say any names, but you know who I'm talking about. That's what I did. And I started forcing myself to become more masculine because I thought that was the way. But pretty quickly I realized my girl doesn't really appreciate that. In fact, she felt repelled by my masculinity. And to be honest, I just kept forcing myself to become more masculine. This word is so overused, that's why I'm using like the hand signal here. But at the end of the day, what I did was, and I only realized this years later, and now I got to the point where I have realized this and where my relationship has massively improved because of this. I realized that I was not acting out of love for myself or for her or for anyone else. I was acting out of fear. And this was one of the mistakes I made. I acted out of fear of losing her, fear of her losing attraction, fear of her not respecting me, fear of her not thinking I'm masculine, her thinking I'm a chump. That was the place I operated from. That was the place I acted from. And of course she doesn't appreciate that. Why? Because I wasn't free. And as we've learned from David Data, she wants to see you free. She wants to see you not only free in like a financial sense or like time free or whatever, she wants to see you free from all constraints, and fear is a constraint. She wants to see you free so you can show her more love, and so you can show everyone else more love and live a better life at the end of the day, because fear doesn't lead to anything good, let's be honest. At the end of the day, I'll be honest, I was overthinking every single move I made. Overthinking every single text I sent her, overthinking every single word I said to her, overthinking every single move I made in the bedroom, overthinking everything. I was not free. My head, my thoughts weren't free. I was caught in my head, and she could notice that. And of course, I also just didn't know how to actually be properly masculine, right? That also pulls, is a point in this, and I wasn't acting authentic. I was, again, acting out of fear. What led to me completely missing the point of becoming more masculine, which one of those points is every single human being, and this is again David Data, the guy we all trust here, right? He says every single person has a masculine and a feminine side, and in many people they just differ, right? Like most women have more of a feminine side than a masculine side, but they still have a feminine side, a masculine side, and I still have a feminine side, and I completely overlooked that fact. And in fact, I recently heard Chris Bumstead, the bodybuilder, say on a podcast with, I think it was Chris Williamson, say something along the lines of, you need to integrate the masculine and the feminine you have within yourself to become a champion, because you should have that emotional side. You should have that side there, you're just like that feminine side where you're just like, I'm gonna be emotional right now, but you should also have that masculine side where you're like, I'm gonna be emotional right now, but I'm still gonna go and fuck shit up right now. And so this is exactly the point. It's not about just becoming more masculine, it's about becoming someone who can integrate both the masculine and the feminine he has in himself or in herself, and becoming whole as a person and seeing both of these sides, because quite frankly we need both of these sides. I'll give you a quick example. My girl and I have been doing long distance for the last few weeks because she's traveling right now, and I didn't really get that feminine energy as much as usually from her. Of course we still hop on calls, but it's not the same as being in person, having sex, all that kind of stuff, right? And so what I did is automatically I spent more time in nature because I needed more feminine energy. I watched more movies because I needed more feminine energy. Automatically. Because I'm personally, and I'll be the first one to admit this, I would say I have around a 20% feminine side. Around 20% of me needs that feminine energy and wants to be in that feminine state. And so 20% of my time has to kind of be spent in that time. Obviously not as much, right? Like if I'm in a period right now, for example, where I'm really just grinding and hustling, of course I'll be more in my masculine, but I'll still have to kind of balance it with the feminine. And the point here is, if you actually look at this, all these young men nowadays who try to become more masculine, oh, feminine is bad. What they are doing here is becoming immaturely masculine, and this is a big, big problem. But more on that later. Before I tell you this, if your relationship right now isn't going well and you struggle with masculinity, you struggle with attraction, with polarity, with communication, whatever it is, but you love this woman and you want to make it work with her, then you can book a free discovery call with me so we can figure out how I can help you. Link in description. And now here's the reason why she tells you that she's so repelled by your masculinity, or why she doesn't appreciate your masculinity. Because she tests you. And the red pill talks about shit tests, right? I call them challenges because that's what they are. Your woman and the world as well. The world is feminine. There's a reason why we say Mother Earth. Your woman, or a feminine woman in general, and the world will always test you, challenge you, give you some challenge that you need to overcome to become the person that she knows you can become, that the world knows you can become. Without challenge, we don't grow. There's, again, David Data quote, the feminine grows by praise, the masculine grows by challenge. Exactly. And so she gives you challenges. She tells you, I don't appreciate that masculinity. She kind of makes you aware that what you're doing is immature, because she wants you to become a more mature man and a more mature lover for yourself, but also for her and for your children or future children. And take someone, now let me say this first maybe. A good example of immature masculinity and mature masculinity is if you compare the king with the prince. Because the king, yes, he's very masculine, he's a leader. He has all the benefits of being a king, he has all the power, but he also has to carry a huge weight on his shoulders. He is responsible for all his people. He has that huge responsibility, that huge burden that he has to carry. And then he gets the power. The prince has the power. The prince has all the benefits of being a prince, right? He's famous and everyone knows him, and he gets all the pretty girls and all that kind of stuff. But the prince doesn't have to take any responsibility. The prince doesn't have to do anything to be that person. And so the prince will fail if he doesn't mature. The prince, you can't just be a prince in a king's role. That doesn't work. So if you want to become more mature, don't act like a prince, act like the king. A good example of this is, said this many times on the channel, Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings. Because Aragorn not only in the end becomes the king, for example, right? But he struggles with becoming the king. This is like the whole plot around Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings. He doesn't think he's ready to take that responsibility. He fears taking that responsibility. He doesn't want to lead his people. He fears that responsibility, but in the end, he does it. He has a huge transformation. He becomes more mature in that sense. And not only that, but Aragorn also combines many other aspects of the masculine. He is a warrior. He is a lover. and he's also what people call the magician, which is a knowledgeable man, and a man who is also capable of arts. Aragorn is a warrior, but he's also a poet. And this is not by mistake. Everyone who worked on this character, Aragorn, the directors, the actor, the lighting people, the people who do the makeup, whatever it is, all these people who worked on these movies, and of course the author of the books, right? At the end of the day, all these people thought about how can we make this character as authentic and as maturely masculine as possible, because they knew they would create a role model for many people, and that's what they did. And so at the end of the day, your girl, she wants you to change, she wants you to grow, she wants you to improve, but she will tell you very, very much and very precisely when you're doing something wrong. And of course there's a difference between her calling you out, like calling out your bullshit, challenging you, or her being toxic. There's a difference there. And there's no such thing as toxic masculinity or toxic femininity. There's just toxic people. And some of those are more feminine, some of those are more masculine. At the end of the day though, what matters here is she challenges you if she's a good woman. And that is completely okay. And that is good. And I wouldn't have gone to the point, this is the important point here, I wouldn't have become the guy who I am now, becoming more of the mature man that I want to become, without my girl. I wouldn't have done that. Because she wouldn't have challenged me. And without a challenge you can't grow. And of course, like I said earlier, the world also challenges us, right? But this very direct and very sometimes hurtful feedback from our women really makes a big difference for us. So appreciate that feedback. And I'm not saying to bend to her way, bend to what she's saying. I'm saying take her feedback into account and reflect on whether you are actually acting like a king or like a prince or like a warrior or like a hero. Because you don't want to be a hero, you want to be a warrior. You want to win and then not talk about it. That's mature. The immature guy has some mediocre win and then talks about it with everyone. The warrior doesn't do that. Now, one more thing we have to talk about here, which is very, very important, is that nowadays most young men, including myself, we have enough while growing up. We don't have to become a man while growing up. And you see people like, for example, Iman Gadzhi, who had, I'm just mentioning him because many people on YouTube know him, he had to grow up very quickly. If you know his story, he had a very, very traumatic childhood, and he probably only shared like 1% of the things that he has experienced. Like, that's what he shared openly on YouTube. The other 99%, no one will ever know. He had to grow up with like 12 years old. He had to become the man of the house at 12 years old. And that is why he is where he is. Not just externally, but also internally within him. But if you look at like ancient tribes, what they all had is every boy to become a man had to go through some initiation ritual. We don't have that anymore. I'll be honest, my family had very little money when I grew up. When I was a small boy, very little money. We had to buy used ski boots that didn't fit me for like 15 euros. 15, not 50. We couldn't afford ones for 50. And they didn't fit me, but I still went skiing with my parents, which is definitely a privilege, and which I definitely appreciate, right? We weren't dirt poor, but we didn't have a lot of money. But we always had we always had enough. And you probably also always had enough, and you never had a big challenge in your life. And me, I'm going through a big challenge right now, but to be honest, most of my life was very comfortable. And that is not my fault or your fault or anyone else's fault. Anyone else's who is in the situation. That's the fault of our society. Our society is built very, very securely for all of us. And that's why we don't need to evolve as much. We don't need to grow up as much. Everything is secure. And that's why women nowadays say, oh, I don't need a man anymore. Which, no, you don't. You don't need a man anymore to survive. If you're living in a first world country, I'm living in Germany, right? So a woman here doesn't need a man. But maybe she wants a man, right? And I think that's more powerful, if you ask me. But at the end of the day, just realize you are in this situation right now. It's not your fault that you are in this situation, but it is your responsibility to get out of this situation and to grow up and to become more maturely masculine and not stay that immature prince that you are right now. Now, brother, if your relationship right now isn't going well, and you're struggling in that relationship, and it isn't going well, maybe it even feels like it's dying, maybe you're afraid of her leaving you or even cheating on you, but you don't want that to happen because you're ambitious, you love this woman, you want to make it work with her, then what you can do is, you can book a free call with me, so we can figure out how I can help you. This call is for people who don't have all the time in the world to watch all these YouTube videos, listen to all these podcasts, read all the books, never mind even finding all those resources, because finding the right resources for your problems, that's the biggest challenge here. It took me years to do it myself, so now I want to help people do it in way less time. If that sounds interesting to you, and you don't just want your relationship to survive, maybe, barely, but you want it to thrive, you want to really have a relationship that supports your life, that supports your purpose, then book that call with me right now, and I'll see if I can help you. Link in description. Book that call if you want to. I'll see you soon. I'll get out of here because it's hot as fuck. The cows are hiding in the shade back there, and they're right because fucking hell, it is warm, and I enjoy warm weather, so that's good. I'll see you soon, boys. Book that call if you want to. Bye.